Sydney had seen many strange things during her 3 years aboard the interstellar research vessel Horizon's Edge, but nothing quite prepared her for the sight that greeted her in the laundry room that morning. Point six small, furry bodies lay nestled in her freshly dried clothes, their tiny chests rising and falling in peaceful synchrony. They were Valkyrie cubs, each no larger than a house cat, with iridescent fur that shimmered between silver and blue under the ship's fluorescent lights. Their pointed ears twitched occasionally in sleep, and their small paws were curled protectively around each other. "Well," Sydney whispered, a smile tugging at her lips, "I guess the laundry can wait." She backed away slowly, careful not to disturb them, and nearly collided with Bentley as he rounded the corner with his own basket of clothes. "Sid, you done with the—" He stopped mid-sentence, his eyes widening as he peered over her shoulder. "Is that what I think it is?" "6 Valkyrie cubs, sleeping in my uniform pile," Sydney confirmed, her voice barely above a whisper. "The delegation's children must have wandered off." Bentley set his basket down carefully. The Valkyrie were one of the most reclusive species in the Galactic Coalition, and this was the first time they'd agreed to meet with human representatives. The diplomatic mission was crucial. Humanity's acceptance into the wider galactic community depended on it. "We should alert Commander Vexare immediately," Bentley said, already reaching for his comm device. Sydney caught his wrist gently. "Wait. Look at them, Bentley. When was the last time you saw any Valkyrie actually relaxed?" He paused, following her gaze. She had a point. Since the Valkyrie delegation had boarded 3 days ago, they'd been tense, suspicious, their crystalline eyes constantly scanning for threats. Their ambassador, Vexare, had made it clear that humans were on probation. One wrong move, and the alliance would crumble before it began. The cubs, however, looked utterly at peace. "They must have been exploring," Sydney mused, leaning against the doorframe. "Found the warmth of the dryer, the soft fabric. Humans aren't the only ones who find comfort in simple things, apparently." Bentley ran a hand through his dark hair, a gesture Sydney recognized as his thinking pose. "You know, if Vexire finds out her cubs wandered into the human quarters unsupervised, she'll take it as a security failure. Could tank the whole mission." "Or," Sydney countered, her eyes lighting up with that particular gleam Bentley had learned meant she had an idea. "We could let them sleep. Show that humans can be trusted with what's most precious to them." "That's a hell of a gamble, Sid." "Everything about this mission is a gamble." She crossed her arms, her expression softening as she watched the smallest cub, barely the size of a kitten, burrow deeper into her favorite jacket. "Besides, look at them. They chose to sleep here. That has to mean something." For the next hour, Sydney and Bentley became the unlikely guardians of 6 alien cubs. They took turns standing watch at the laundry room door, redirecting curious crew members and fabricating excuses about maintenance issues. Sydney replicated some of the Valkyrie dietary supplements from the ship's database, placing small dishes of the gel-like substance near the sleeping pile, just in case the cubs woke hungry. Bentley watched her work with quiet admiration. This was why Sydney was the best xenobiologist on the ship. She didn't just study alien species, she understood them on an instinctive level. "You know," he said softly, "most people would panic. Or at least wake them up and return them immediately." Sydney glanced up from adjusting a blanket she draped over the nearby chair. Close enough for the cubs to crawl under if they wanted more warmth, but not so close as to disturb them. "Most people didn't grow up with 6 younger siblings like I did. You learn that sometimes the best thing you can do is just let them rest." It was another 40 minutes before the cubs began to stir. The smallest one woke first, its large eyes blinking open to find Sydney sitting cross-legged on the floor a respectful distance away. The cub tilted its head, studying her with an intelligence that was startling in something so young. Sydney didn't move. She simply smiled, a genuine, warm expression, and whispered in carefully practiced Valkyrie, "Hello, little one. You're safe here." The cub's ears perked forward. It made a soft chirping sound that woke its siblings, and soon all 6 were awake, watching the humans with curious eyes rather than fear. That was when Commander Vexare arrived. The Valkyrie ambassador materialized in the doorway like a storm, her fur bristling with agitation, her retinue of guards flanking her. "My children," she began, her translated voice sharp with panic. Then she stopped. Point 6 small cubs were indeed in the human laundry room, but they weren't cowering or crying. They were playing, tumbling gently over Sydney's folded clothes while she laughed, reaching out to let them bat at her fingers. Bentley sat nearby, offering them bits of the supplement gel and speaking to them in a soft, soothing tone. Ambassador, Sydney said, slowly standing while the cubs continued their play. They found their way here a few hours ago. They were sleeping, so we decided the laundry could wait. Vexaire's crystalline eyes moved from her children to the humans, to the carefully arranged dishes of food, to the blanket placed thoughtfully nearby. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. Then, the ambassador did something unprecedented. She sat down. Right there on the laundry room floor, the most powerful Velcari diplomat folded her legs beneath her and sat among the humans and her cubs. You let them sleep? Her voice carried a note of wonder. You did not alert me immediately? You did not see them as leverage or liability. We saw them as children, Sydney said simply. And children who are tired should be allowed to rest, no matter what species they belong to. The smallest cub, the one who had woken first, climbed into Vexaire's lap and then immediately climbed back out to curl up against Sydney's leg. The ambassador watched this exchange with unreadable eyes. For 3 cycles, I have tested you humans, Vexaire said quietly. I have watched for deception, for cruelty, for the ruthless pragmatism that defines so many spacefaring species. She gestured to her cubs, now playing peacefully between the 3 adults. But this is not something that can be faked. You protected them not because you had to, but because you believed they deserved rest. She stood, and her guards immediately moved to collect the cubs. But before she left, Vexaire placed her hand over her heart in the Velcari gesture of deepest respect. The alliance will proceed, Sydney of Earth. Any species that values a child's sleep over political expediency is one we can trust among the stars. As the ambassador and her cubs departed, Bentley finally let out the breath he'd been holding. Well, he said, looking at the scattered laundry. Guess we should actually do the washing now. Sydney grinned, picking up her cub-warm jacket. Worth it. And somewhere in the vast diplomatic logs of the Galactic Coalition, a note would be made. Humanity, unexpected, compassionate, and willing to let their laundry wait for the sake of sleeping children. Recommended for full membership. Because sometimes, the most human thing you can do is recognize that some things, like a child's peaceful sleep, are universal.